Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Brian E. Roach and Zach Metkler.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast, brought to you in partnership by FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can bet anywhere in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and you can also play fantasy to win cash. We will revisit some of that in a few moments, but as you may have been able to infer from listening to the smooth and silky sounds of my voice, as opposed to the harsh and raspy sounds of one Joseph Kuzma, I've taken control. That's right, it's me, the host who doesn't like toast, Brian E. Roach. I have taken control of the flagship podcast here because Joe is out doing Joe Kuzma things and is unavailable. He will be taking control back in the postgame because I may be unavailable. But we'll hook up again next week, and I'm sure my brother from another mother will be happy to get back around, and we will talk some more Steelers football. But in order to talk Steelers football right now and to look forward to what is a very important game against those Cleveland Brownies, I am joined by our younger brother from another mother, the professor of football, one Zachariah Metkler. Zach, how you doing, man? Welcome back.
Not too bad. I'm on the mend from a week or so of illness, so it's kind of nice to be able to talk again somewhat and get back into the swing of things.
Absolutely. So we've got a game coming up this Sunday that's been flexed to 1 o'clock because apparently nobody thought it was going to be of high enough quality to stay at the 4:30 time slot or the 4 o'clock time slot, whatever it was, with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. And, this is a rematch of what certainly was a fiasco of a game 2 weeks ago. And you and I haven't specifically talked about that game, but as we all know, it ended with Myles Garrett trying to, cave in Mason Rudolph's head with a helmet. Didn't succeed in doing that, but did succeed in getting himself suspended for at least the remainder of the season. Maurkice Pouncey also got suspended for attempting to kick Myles Garrett to death. As we found out today, David DeCastro got secretly fined without being included on the suspension and fine list that was originally illustrated because he laid on Myles Garrett. This has nothing to do with the game, but if I'm David DeCastro, I'm hot about that. First of all, you're not listed, and then you just get this secret envelope later on that goes, you know what? We have to fine you too. But for what? What did DeCastro do to warrant a fine in that fight? As far as you saw, I saw nothing. He literally attempted to protect Myles Garrett by just laying on him, basically saying, "No, I'm going to be the peacemaker. I'm going to try and break this up, and not let you get at Mason, not let you get at Pouncey, and not let them get at you anymore." But yet, apparently, that gets him $15,000 fine, give or take. What the hell is going on?
Yeah, I have no idea. When I saw the moment that happened, I was really kind of pleased with DeCastro, and I made a note of it after the game. When you're in a situation like that, players are taught to pretty much try to do what DeCastro did. I thought of all the people involved, from Myles Garrett, Larry Ogunjobi, to Maurkice Pouncey, Mason Rudolph, whomever, even Matt Filer, I thought DeCastro handled himself the best. He went into there. You could very clearly tell what he was doing, trying to get Myles Garrett away from the situation calmly. He wasn't being physical with him. He wasn't manhandling him. He's just trying to get him away, diffuse the situation. And even whenever Mason Rudolph comes over and tries to get back involved in the thing, get his helmet back, you still see DeCastro trying to do it, in which case he pushes him to the ground and holds him there and is almost like a security blanket of saying, "Hey, come on, you need to stop doing this, man." To see him get a $14,000 fine as opposed to one of the $3,000 fines that we're seeing elsewhere. I don't know if the NFL thought he was being more malicious than what his intent actually was. If that was the case, why not just include it on the actual thing? But I think the fact of the matter is, whenever DeCastro's name wasn't even included onto the original docket of fines that we saw published last week, you'd think that it would be on there. I think that's the slap in the face even more, is that he's trying to be the good individual, the good Samaritan in the situation where he's going to go and try to do the right thing. and now he's going to get punished with $14,000 of it. You saw individuals on Twitter trying to go and do a GoFundMe for Marquise Pouncey. I almost want to do it now for David DeCastro, because that's an asinine fine for someone that's trying to do the right thing and was not at all remotely even close to being an aggressor in the situation, and now he's being punished for trying to do the right thing. And what I thought was the one good teaching moment for people at home trying to see how the situation could escalate, and an individual that's going to do the right thing. I think it's a slap in the face. I'm just as appalled and as David DeCastro is, and I'm sure many fans are that heard that news.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. He's being the peacemaker. He's doing the right thing. But why would we ever consider that the NFL would be A, consistent, and B, above board in anything? I might have to change my my hashtag from the ref stink to the league office stinks. I don't know. Just the whole thing is fraught with inconsistencies and ridiculousnessnesses, and I guess if you see Roger Goodell, kick him in the nuts. What else? I don't even know if he's to blame, but he's in charge, so the hell with it. All right. Now that we got that venting out of the way, there's another topic before we start talking about the actual game that I think we may as well address. With our young wide receiver,
sure,
who decided to post in his Instagram story himself going 100 miles an hour someplace, and of course this is elicited many hot take articles out there of a variety of levels of ridiculousness about the dangerous path he is trotting, and how Juju's going down the dark side road, and the emperor is calling him and he's coming to the dark side, and Antonio Brown is wearing a cape or a hood and pretending to be Emperor Palpatine and trying to lure Juju into the dark ways of whatever. Look, I did stupid stuff when I was 22. I do stupid stuff now. And I get it. The difference is he's in a high-profile area, but this isn't the McKnight Road incident, right? This isn't somebody just tearing down the road, going nuts. This is just a kid doing something dumb. I'm sure he's going to get talked to, but I don't think we should be reading into this as a potential for leading down a bad path. I mean, do you?
No, I mean, in my mind, the speed he was going, yeah, it was a dumb thing to do. Even more dumb was the whole, I'm going to post it on my social media while going that far over the speed limit. That's stupid. It's stupid things to do. My main issue is the holier than thou attitude that a lot of times we like to take with these athletes and make as though we are all saints for the things that we do. We have athletes out there that do a lot of bad branding, but to try to put Juju in this light where he's this all of a sudden villain and he's going down this bad road of how involved he is with social media, which is a very big part of who he is. He's a very big presence on social media. He takes his YouTube channel seriously and things like that. But to say that means he doesn't take his career as an NFL football player seriously, I think is a little bit much. To sit there and say that these athletes don't do anything else with their life except football is a little bit much. I know we've had this discussion in months and years past about athletes and, Le'Veon Bell's rap career and Myles Garrett, for example, who writes poetry and things like that. These players do have other hobbies. I mean, and that's to sit there and say that every individual on the face of this planet only does their job 24/7 and they're not allowed to have any other hobbies. That's a bit much. I don't think he's going down the wrong path. He's a young guy, 22. I believe he just turned 23. He's been in the league for 3 years, and we need to remember the fact that even though he's a 3-year vet, which in a lot of terms is a mid-20s guy, he's still young. He's still learning. He does a lot of good for the city of Pittsburgh. He does a lot of good for his area back in California and LA. I think realistically this is a dumb situation by a young guy who hopefully he learns from this and realizes how crucial and critical this could have been had he actually hurt someone or himself had an accident happen. But to sit there and say he's going on the wrong path just because we saw A, B go off the rails, at the end of the day, I don't care what he does on social media if it's not malicious. I don't care what he does with his Xbox playing Fortnite on his PC and doing his YouTube. I don't care about that stuff. People are going to be down on him because he's not producing as much this year, but there's so many other extenuating circumstances to why he's not producing at a high level this year than just him being on YouTube and on his social media. There's more to it than just that. And for you not to be able to realize that and just say it's because he's going down the wrong path and he's a menace to society is just too much for me. It's too much.
I agree. And so let's just move on past that and let's look at this upcoming game because hey, it's duck season.
Oh, yeah.
As much to the joy of Steelers Nation and the Steelers Twitterverse, Devlin Hodges has been named the starter for this week's game against the Browns. And I think if you want to read into that, there's a variety of reasons that's a good thing. One being the last person I want to start a game against the Browns right now is Mason Rudolph. For many, many, many reasons. First of all, because of the ugliness of the last game, because of any potential carryover that could occur because he's in the game, and because the Browns are feeding into it by saying we want Mason Rudolph, not because of the fight, but because he stinks. And yep. and talking about it, Ryan Clark's on there on NFL Network discussing how Mason can't read cover 2 and Mason isn't doing these things. Look, Mason's had a tough year, and he has not looked good. He looked really good against the Bengals in one game, but didn't look good against the Bengals last game. And whether it's people have said he hasn't looked the same since he took the shot to the jaw in the Ravens game. Whether that's true or not, I'll tell you, and I said this in the post game, I'm going to say it again. When I watch Mason play right now, I don't think he trusts what he sees. I don't think he trusts himself to make the throws. I think he's indecisive and hesitant. And I don't know whether that's because of the concussion and getting knocked out or whether he's just got the yips, kind of. And when they made the move to Devlin Hodges in the Bengals game, I thought it was probably the right thing to do because Mason's targeting has been really poor. There were some just god-awful throws that occurred. And that's coming off, what was an unpleasant 4-interception game against the Browns. Not all of them are his fault, but you just got to wonder when you look at what he was doing and how he was operating. What do you see from the last 5 quarters of Mason Rudolph, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean it's been rough. I think that might be an understatement for some people, but I don't think the last 5 quarters are going to be what define Mason Rudolph's career. I still think that he has a chance to rebound from this, and maybe this will be the eye-opening thing for him. I'm not saying he's going to be the future of the Steelers. I'm not saying he's going to be a future starter somewhere in the NFL. But sometimes when you're put in a position to face this type of adversity, and he's faced a lot of adversity this year, not just from the Browns game, but not from the turnovers, just from the even just being thrown into this action when you go the entire offseason, knowing you're one play away, but really not kind of comprehending that until Ben goes down permanently in the Seahawks game for the year. There's a lot of adversity faced, and sometimes I think that can kind of work out well for you when it comes to trying to learn how to rebound and become a better player. But I think when you're looking at in a vacuum what he's done over the last 5 or 6 quarters or so with the interceptions, the lack of confidence, floating balls downfield, not really showing any level of mobility in the pocket when it came to pressure being thrown in your face, I think I don't disagree with the move. I think it was something that you kind of had to do at this position because you're now sitting in the 6th spot in the playoffs. You have that wild card spot. You control your destiny. Even though you don't have an easy schedule, you have a favorable schedule in comparison to other teams. I think it was a good move to bench him for the time being, elite, and maybe for the rest of the year, if it comes to that, just to kind of get him into a spot where he can regain some of that confidence. Because I thought when I saw him in camp, and I thought even before the hit against the Ravens, like you mentioned, I thought he was confident. I thought he kind of carried himself well. He would make a mistake. Didn't seem to faze him very much. And now over the last 2 games or so, he's kind of been just cascading down, and he goes out into the field, and you're kind of just holding your breath the entire time. You never used to hold your breath watching the Steelers offense. Even earlier on in this season, before all this kind of started happening. You never really held your breath. You kind of felt that they could move the ball and hopefully capitalize on some things. But over the last 2 games or so, it's just been absolutely monotonous just trying to watch him go down the field and do something. And I'm hoping this turns into a spark, not just for him, but for the Steelers as a whole as they're trying to move forward and make a playoff push here. So I like the move. I think it's going to be something that's going to hopefully benefit them down the road, even if Devlin Hodges is only moderately better or even similar. Just the air he brings will hopefully be enough to jumpstart this offense.
Yeah, and look, I'm gonna speak to this in two ways. From a talent aspect, do I think that we're going to get a major upgrade in Devlin Hodges? No. Yeah. I'm just being blatant and honest. No. But from an attitude upgrade, do I expect more production? Do I expect maybe we will see a better offense with Devlin at the helm? Maybe. And the reason I say that is because right now, and everybody's been saying this left and right, from Steelers Live to the beat reports, Devlin Hodges is playing with house money. Right? He's not even supposed to be here. And now he's going to be starting his second game in the NFL. I think, he's going to be making his reads quickly. He's going to take what's there. And is he going to be, mistake free? No. We saw in the Chargers game, I think, what happens when you let him, play completely fearlessly. He's probably going to make some bad throws that are going to get picked off. So I don't think that this is not the savior, and everybody who wants to dust off a gold jacket for Devlin Hodges needs to slow their roll. Because while he may be, more suitable to the offense right now because of maybe having a better set of a level of confidence in what he's doing, because he feels like, what has he got to lose? Nothing. I think that we could see an improvement over Mason. But talent-wise, this is not Brett Favre, right? This is not going to be the guy who comes in on the white horse and saves everything. I said this at the end of the last game. I'm going to continue to preach this. The defense is what's going to carry them into the playoffs if, in fact, they can get there. And it's not going to be this offense, because this offense isn't very good right now. I don't know whether they're going to become very good. We talked about this once before in either a postgame or a pregame, where they needed to find their identity. They still don't know, but I don't blame them anymore because it's been a mess. So while I think we could see better production with Devlin Hodges in there, and I'll let you speak to this real quick because I'm going on here. I just don't think it's a massive upgrade the way that everybody seems to think it is from the the Steelers Twitterverse and social media. Speaking from that aspect, I don't know that the guys who get paid to analyze this actually think that, but what do you think? Do you think this is going to be is this the second coming, or are we just hopefully we can have some football that is watchable?
Yeah, I think it's more football that's watchable. I don't know if you remember, Brian, but earlier on in the summer, I was one of the earlier people at SCU to kind of toot the bandwagon horn for Devlin Hodges, just due to the fact of what I was able to see from him at Stanford and kind of what he was kind of doing earlier on in the summer process after getting brought onto the team. And I think he has exciting traits that are going to make him at least enjoyable to watch. And I think that's kind of going to be the difference between him and Rudolph. I really think that from a pedigree standpoint, you can't argue Rudolph versus Hodges, because Rudolph still has the pedigree, good or bad, still has it. I just think Devlin Hodges is going to give you that excitement and that confidence. I think that's the main difference. I still, and I'll probably get heat for this, I don't think Mason Rudolph is a bad quarterback. I think he's a quarterback that's not really handling this pressure to the level he could. And whether that's going to ever change or whether that's just a growing pains type thing, I just think Devlin Hodges right now has the I don't have anything to lose mindset. Like you said, I'm not supposed to be here. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. I think he adds an added sense of mobility, which is going to be beneficial due to the fact that especially now that Alejandro Villanueva has been showing up on the injury report. The offensive line's been allowing pressure this season more than they have in recent years. Having that added mobility kind of makes you feel like, well, if nothing's there for Devlin, he could at least scramble out of the pocket and pick up 3-4 yards and live to play another down instead of forcing the ball in the window or taking a sack for a loss of 9 yards. I think that will at least give you a little bit more to look forward to. And another important thing is not that the team hasn't been around and supporting Mason Rudolph, but they really seem like they're uber supportive of Devlin Hodges. And I think that's another part that's kind of being lost in all this shuffle with the Steelers Twitterverse. You look at what he is doing when it comes to his team support, the energy he's bringing, the confidence he's bringing. That's huge. And, I'm a firm believer that he might not have the elite talent, even though he does have a solid arm. I think that he has that fake it till you make it type of deal right now where he might make mistakes. He's going to make up for the big play. He'll make another mistake, make another nice play, and you're going to have to kind of live and die with that, but at least it's going to be fun to watch. Hopefully you don't have to hold your breath nearly as much. And he's going to at least stand in there and make the throw and trust what he sees. He hasn't had the experience so far in the league to kind of throw the ball in air like we've seen from guys like Ben. But I don't think he has to. Like the play that everyone keeps talking about, myself included, the touchdown pass to James Washington. James Washington deserves a lot of props because there was no one around him when he made the catch. He finished the playoff the fashion that he did. But it was still a nice throw by Devlin Hodges because you see him stand there. He makes the reads. You see him keeping his eyes downfield, and he just pops it down there because I do think right now he has a marginally stronger arm than Mason Rudolph. I think that will hopefully allow the Steelers to kind of open things up more with their passing game. But I think you have to temper expectations. To think that he's going to come out there and be the next gunslinging Pat Mahomes, the next gunslinging Brett Favre, even Ben Roethlisberger, you can't expect that. But I think seeing that confidence, seeing the Steelers hopefully move the ball with relative increased ease than what we've seen kind of before, where it was very anemic and very stagnant, I think will kind of help them out a lot. And I'm hoping that kind of is what leads them down in the ensuing weeks as they get into these last games of the season.
Yeah, I agree. Look, the way I look at this is I think Mike Tomlin probably said it best. He didn't kill us.
Yeah.
Because, as we start to talk about this game and what's going to key in on this game with the Browns, one of the big keys is don't throw 4 interceptions like they did last time around. They have to protect the ball on offense. They need to be consistent enough that the defense can get rest, but they don't. It's not going to be on the offense to carry the day. Right? They need to take advantage of the opportunities that are going to be there when they're there. If the defense sets them up, they need to turn that into points, whether it's touchdowns or field goals. I don't know if I care. But what I do care about is not doing the opposite of that and putting the defense in bad positions or, turning over the ball 4 points to the other team. That's, I think, something that is really going to be critical in this game. And just because, you said Mason Rudolph, you don't think he's a bad quarterback. And while generally speaking, I agree with you, I think he's a bad quarterback right now.
Yeah, right. No, I agree completely.
And that is like it's like a catch-22. It can be the same way for cornerbacks as well. And we saw that with Cortez Allen, and maybe even with Artie Burns a bit. They start to lose confidence and things just spiral. And I think that can be actually true in almost any position. Even with Dante Moncrief, not being able to catch a pass. This is a guy who's been in the league for several years, and all of a sudden he can't catch. When you start to lose your confidence, things just tend to go bad, and it's time to just step away. And so I think it's the right move that they made here with Hodges and getting him into the starting lineup. It's an interesting offense, and this has been talked about as well. We may as well round all this out. It looks like Deontay Johnson probably still going to play. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't play. He's not on the injury report anymore. Juju is now out of the concussion protocol, but still did not practice because of knee injury. So it's probably questionable whether Juju is going to play in this game or not. You got Pouncey, who's suspended, so Vinny's going to be in at center. As you said, Villanueva shows up with a shoulder and was limited in practice today. We'll have to see how that goes tomorrow and through the rest of the week. They've shuffled this line a lot, and one of the things that I think is critical in this game is the offensive line. They have to play better than they did the last time around. This has been not a great season for the offensive line, in my view, and they have underperformed and not looked like a top offensive line like everybody is used to them looking. And whether that's in part due to injuries, whether it's the shuffling and you don't have the chemistry because these guys are moving in and out of spots, I don't know. But this needs to be a rebound game for the offensive line, and that's going to be tough to do with Pouncey out and if Villanueva is hurt. I want to get your impressions on that before I ask you a question about Big Al. What do you think these guys need to do, and are they going to be capable of pulling it off in this game?
I want to backtrack real quick and just also reiterate, I don't think that Mason Rudolph is a good quarterback right now. I think he's a good quarterback in a sense that we haven't seen enough of him, in my opinion, over this season to really make a judgment of what his career trajectory is going to be. I think he still can be a quarterback in the league.
Sure.
I just think that he needs to sit down right now, reflect, and improve and grow from this adversity. Going to his playing style compared to Devlin Hodges' playing style, I think that actually can help the offensive line to an extent. Mason Rudolph has shown surprising immobility in the pocket. When he was coming out, I compared him somewhat similarly to Ben Roethlisberger, not from a mobility standpoint where he's going to take off and scramble like a Lamar Jackson or Russell Wilson. But I thought he could at least move around and shed tackles. And recently, he's just looked like a tree that's ready to get cut down. He doesn't look like anything that's going to be able to go and make any type of movement. I think that's kind of stymied the offensive line a little bit in the sense that they're trying to protect some pretty good defensive lines. They haven't played scrub defensive lines this year. The 49ers D-line is good. The Seahawks have some playmakers now that they added Javion Clowney and all that on their line. They've played some good teams. Like even the Browns have a very good defensive line. It's not like they've played, Miami Dolphins every single week.
Right.
I think realistically you have to take that consideration. But I think when you have a guy like Devlin Hodges that's going to be able to try to be mobile, get around, maybe that's going to help them a little bit. Because I think they have struggled this year. And I think a big part of their struggles has kind of been going back to the whole identity thing. The Steelers have been somewhat one-dimensional. I think the play calling has been predictable, and I put a lot of that on Randy Fiedler, but I put a lot on the fact that you have moving pieces with your offensive line, with your receivers, with your quarterback, with your running backs. You have guys that have little to no experience in the NFL, let alone even in your own system. And now we're trying to put together a game plan that could work. And I think that's kind of what's hurt the offensive line. They've gone from having Villanueva, Foster, Pouncey, DeCastro, and some combination of Marcus Gilbert, Chris Hubbard, or Matt Filer over the last 4 seasons. Now all of a sudden you're looking at Chukwuma Okorafor getting time. You're getting B.J. Finney playing a lot. You've had Pouncey be suspended. You've had Foster be hurt. You have Villanueva banged up. You have Filer being his first real unquestioned year as a starter. Zach Banner is new to contributing points. So this is kind of a new feel offensive line from what we've seen. They need to get something going though. And they've been facing a lot of stacked boxes because teams when Mason Rudolph was a quarterback, they don't feel threatened by him. They're going to stack the box and try to stuff the run, and the run game hasn't been exotic. You're feeling the loss of Le'Veon Bell and James Conner, in my opinion, because of the fact that Jalen Samuels is not really able to handle a lot of that in between the tackle stacked box looks, and Benny Snell was hurt, and Trey Edmonds is inexperienced. So again, there's so many factors going into it. I'm hoping that if you can get some level of consistent play with Devlin Hodges, if you saw the glimpses of Benny Snell last week and how he was kind of able to get some traction going, and Kareth White's explosiveness and Jalen Samuels' ability as a pass-catching running back, hopefully that's going to help the offensive line try to get some semblance of push going. I think a lot of the offensive issues have started up front. I think any good offense you can look to has a solid offensive line. I think that kind of starts now with the Steelers, and hopefully they can get back to that. Because I think we've been spoiled with very good offensive line play in recent years, and it's been really disheartening to see them kind of take a step back for whatever reason. But I think they're in a position where if they get that traction going, they can get the run game confidently operating and hopefully get some sort of a threat from Devlin Hodges where defenses now have to start respecting him as a passer, even just a little bit, I think will help take some of that pressure off of them as a unit.
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to say, too, is, it hasn't helped the offensive line that Mason has been as indecisive as he's been and holds the ball. Yeah. We talk about Ben holding the ball. We understand Ben holds the ball. But Ben has a pedigree that goes along with that. Ben has a history that goes along with holding the ball where 6 times out of 7, he's going to hold it and make something happen that pops your eyes out of your head. And the other time, he's going to make something happen that makes you pull your hair out of your head. But, Mason doesn't have that. And he doesn't look like that's why he's holding the ball. He looks like he's holding the ball because he doesn't know where to go with it or doesn't feel comfortable having a place to go with it. I don't think that will be the case with Devlin Hodges. I think Devlin Hodges, at least in his initial exposure to the NFL, has looked much more decisive in where he wants to go with things and is willing to take what's there and make the throw. So that in and of itself can help the offensive line because they're not being forced to hold up so long, under these pass rushes, and because the ball gets out a little quicker. So I think that will help as well. Now, you mentioned Benny Snell because it's going to be probably Benny Snell as the feature back this week with Jalen Samuels, and Cast, picking up the slack. And, we got to see a little Benny Snell football last week. He looked a little better than I've seen him look in other games. What do you think of Benny Snell overall so far? I'll tell you, I love the guy's demeanor. I love the guy's attitude. I love the spark that he brings to the offense. To me, he, even on the runs where he breaks out, he just doesn't seem as explosive as I thought he would, or as fast. He seems slow to me. And whether that's an unfair, because look, there are runners who have a different stride, right? And when you watch them run, you're like, damn, he's not running very fast, but then he's gone. And all of a sudden, nobody's catching him. I don't know that that's the case with Benny Snell because guys are catching him. I don't think he's blazing fast. But, he's getting the job done, and he did a nice job, 98 yards in the last game, and I don't feel unhappy that he's going to be there. But what's your take on Benny Snell from what you've seen so far?
I think as the year's gone along, he's shown a steady progression. His 2 games where he had the opportunity to kind of showcase what he has against the Chargers and the Bengals, he's had a healthy average. Against the Chargers, he was 17 for 75, which is 4.4 average, and he was 21 and 98 against the Bengals last week for 4.7 average. And I think him coming out, he's listed at 5'10", 225. I think 5'10" is generous. I think he's realistically more in the ballpark of 5'8", 5'9". He's a very, very, very compact, stout runner. And truth be told, I think he's going to take the similar route that we've seen with Le'Veon Bell, James Conner, Jalen Samuels, et cetera, of where they've lost weight and kind of retransformed their body going into their sophomore season in the NFL. And I think that's kind of what we're going to see with him. I think he's going to probably trim down to a more muscular 220 or even like a 215 weight, or he's going to maintain that kind of strength that he has because he is a strong runner. Just not fast. He's not explosive. And I think that'll help him because I think James Conner from year 1 to year 2, you kind of saw more of a burst. It wasn't exactly speed, but he kind of felt like he got to that second level and he's going to put a body on a body and make something happen with it. I think Benny Snell has that profile. I think he's closer to a James Conner type running back than he is to a Jalen Samuels, and I think that's going to help him. But for this year, since we can't predict what's going to happen in 2020, I think he's doing enough to kind of move the chains. He's a bruising running back. He's going to go downhill. I think he's very confident. I think the third-person ego that showed itself early on in the process was kind of illuminating to that. I think it's healthy confidence. I think it's more of what you're going to see from a traditional running back where he wants the ball. He wants to help his team do what he can to win. I think when he's given the opportunity, he fits what they try to do. That's why I think James Conner, fits what the Steelers do. And you can have your opinion on his injury history and how long he's going to be in Pittsburgh. I like James Conner. I like his running style. I like Benny Snell. I like his running style. I think it fits kind of that downhill type of back the Steelers wanted. and they kind of had with Le'Veon Bell a little bit, even though his shifty facade. I like Benny Snell. I think if I had to pick him or Jalen Samuels right now healthy, I'm going to take Benny Snell just for the multiplicity he can bring, because I have not been impressed with Jalen Samuels this year.
No, not at all.
I was happy with what he did last year, given the opportunity against the Patriots. Excellent football game by him. But when given the opportunity this year, he's been stuffed. He doesn't seem like, even though he lost the weight and reshaped his body, it seems like he lost a step for whatever reason. And teams have been predicting what he's going to do. He's going off tackle. He's receiving the ball out of the backfield, and they've been able to key off of him. And we had that comment in his 12 or 13 reception game he had. Teams started teeing off on him because they knew the offense was going through him. I think Benny Snell gives you the opportunity to at least run the offense that you want to, which opens up your running game inside the tackles, outside, zone, power, man, however you want to put it. I think he gives you that best opportunity. I think he showed against the Bengals, albeit it was the Bengals, that he has the ability to be a feature back. I'm not going to say a great back, but at least a feature one. We can give him 15 to 20 carries, and he's going to at least give you something. And he seemed like as the game went along against the Bengals, he kind of started getting the ball rolling, and he started kind of picking it up as the Bengals started wearing down. I think that's the running back he is. A back who's going to do his most damage second halves of games, where he can kind of put the pedal to the metal, wear down the defense, and start stumbling forward for some big chunk yardage. And I'm hoping that's what he can do this week, since we saw how porous it was with guys like Jalen Samuels and Trey Evans against the Browns 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So that brings us to the last group that I want to talk about, which is the receivers. And part of that is the tight ends, who have vanished. Vance McDonald has not had what you would expect from Vance McDonald occur this year. And part of that is I keep wondering, is it, it's very difficult to tell on TV. But every now and then you get a shot where you can see, Mason just missing guys, just not seeing wide open guys. So I kind of feel like we're okay with the receiving group, and we'll see whether Deon Cain can follow up, on that one catch he had. At least his first catch was a catch, yeah. and a very nice one, and provide some additional help. James Washington looks like he's growing consistently, which is good, and I like Deontay Johnson, and hope he continues to grow. But I am concerned with where the tight ends are, because tight ends can be an additional threat, as we all know, and they just haven't been. And the limited throws where it seems like they remember, oh yeah, we have a tight end, have been what look like tight end screens or 1-yard passes that essentially give the guys no chance to do anything. We're not seeing them used as downfield weapons. Maybe that's because they're being held in to block more. Maybe it's something else. When you try and look at this, what do you see from the receiving group?
I think the drops were a really big issue for me in recent weeks. I think the fact that they've kind of to side with the drops, at least seemingly, have kind of done is going to be beneficial. Deon Cain's coming out. I thought, not even coming out, but in recent last year and this year, it was his drops and his inconsistent hands. And I think that he came out first game in the black and gold and had that nice, really readjusted catch. I thought was a nice thing. He has all the physical traits you want from a receiver. He was my number 7 receiver in the 2018 draft. I was kind of surprised he fell to the first round. I guess it was more due to the off the field concerns than it was on the field talent. But I thought, seeing him develop, and I think James Washington has been taking that stride, and we've seen his confidence grow, which was a big red flag for him last year. And Deontay Johnson seems like he's a future star in the making, in just his small abridged season we've seen with him so far. I think the receiving core is doing enough, and I think that they've had opportunities where they've been open, and we've seen Mason Rudolph fail to get the ball to them effectively. If Devlin Hodges can even get the ball to him a fraction of more of the time than we've seen with Rudolph, I think that'll be an improvement, and it will allow us to see really the type of production these guys are capable of. We've seen Washington be explosive. We've seen Deontay Johnson be explosive. We know that Deon Cain has the opportunity to do that. I'd like to see more Vinette, and I'd like to see more McDonald. And I think they've been open at times, and they just haven't had the ball have been thrown to them. And I think that they have the opportunities there. And again, I think that just comes with the stagnant pass game that we've seen with Mason Rudolph, especially over the last couple of weeks. And I'm hoping that with Devlin Hodges, that can change a little bit, because I think when you don't have the ability to throw vertically down the field and you're spending a lot of time throwing screens and going horizontally instead of vertically, I think that kind of holds your offense back. No matter how good a player like Deontay Johnson is route running and how good he is in space, you want to see chunk gains in the pass game. You want to see a throw for 20 yards, a throw for 15 yards, a throw for 35 yards, to go along with the screen passes to kind of diversify your playbook. And teams are not respecting the Steelers' pass game at all. And I don't think that's entirely the receiver's fault. I think a lot of that falls squarely on the shoulders of Mason Rudolph and a little bit of Brady Fiegner. But I think the receivers, for as thin as they are, I think, like I said, James Washington, Deontay Johnson are stepping up. I'm hoping Deon Cain keeps getting involved, and hopefully when Juju comes back from this knee injury that seems to kind of be a question mark at this point, he can kind of regain some of that light as well. And I think the Steelers are in good enough shape moving forward, which is strange to say because it seemed as if 2 weeks ago we were saying that they had one of the thinnest receiving rooms in the NFL. I'm excited to see where they go. The drops were my biggest concern, but I think they've taken the opportunities that have been given to them in recent weeks, which have been few and far between with the quarterback play, but I think they've taken those opportunities and tried to turn them into something more productive.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good and accurate. I think that a lot of times this always boils down to the quarterback. There are a lot of different reasons that things have gone a little off the rails this season on the offensive side of the ball, but the inconsistencies at that quarterback position certainly are key to it. Now, before we jump into the other side of the ball, I need to talk about our sponsor, FanDuel. FanDuel, by the way, if you live in Pennsylvania or New Jersey, is now officially live in partnership with Valley Forge. And there's always more ways to win on the FanDuel Sportsbooks. You can do money lines, spreads, totals, parlays, props, teasers, and more. I don't even know what half that stuff is, but you guys probably do. FanDuel Sportsbook has tons of bet types available on every single day. Plus, they always offer unique betting promos to spice up game day, like boosted odds or score bonuses and parlay insurance. And once more, I don't know what any of that stuff is, but you guys probably do. With so much to bet on across 17 different sports, FanDuel Sportsbook is sure to have a wager that's right for you. Now, when we talk about the Steelers game, the Steelers are getting 2 points. The Browns are favored by 2. The over-under on this game is 39. Last time around, I told folks I think the Steelers were favored by 6. And I said, lay the points and take the Steelers and take the under. Well, I was half right? The Steelers didn't win by 7, so they didn't. If you took the Steelers, you lost. But if you took the under, you sure won. So, when I look at this game again, look, I don't. This is, and we'll talk about who we think is going to win at the end. This is a tough game for the Steelers, and I think they will win. It's a home game for them, so if you're going to get the 2 points and you like the black and gold, go ahead and bet on them. I'd also take the under on this game because I don't expect a lot of points. Do you see it any different than that?
No, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think people are looking at the Browns' performance last week against the Dolphins, where they kind of fleeced them and put on the offensive clinic that people were expecting from them earlier on in the year. Again, say what you want about the Steelers game against the Dolphins, it's still the Dolphins. They're still trying to get a top pick. They're still cashing it in to get a quarterback next year's draft. I wouldn't put too much stock in that. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think there'll be a little more action than what we saw 2 weeks ago with the Steelers game, but I think realistically, you're looking at probably a 24-21 type of game, I think, in my opinion.
Now, at 24-21, you better take the over, though, because 24-21, that's, 45? The over-under is 39.
That's hard, Ryan.
Math is hard.
Yeah.
So
we'll call it 20-17. How about that?
Let's see, 2017, 37. There you go. I can live with that as long as the 20 goes to the Steelers. So anyway, whatever you want to bet on. The other game that is coming up this weekend that if I was a betting man, I would be betting on, and I don't know what the spread is. I could probably look it up if I so chose, and maybe I will. There is a college game, and I once again lost people money on the Ohio State-Rutgers game when I told them take the points, take Ohio State, and take the over. The over, again, the over would have won. Apparently I'm much better at over-under as opposed to a straight-up pick. But there is a game against that team up north this weekend, and I'm going to tell you again, I don't know what the spread is. Take the Buckeyes. I think that they'll win this game. I don't know what the over-under is. Oh, look at that. It's 49.5, and Ohio State's got 9. Yeah, definitely take the points and take the over. That's what I'm telling you. You may not have an opinion on that, but what do you think?
I really don't have an opinion on it. I'm a Clemson fan, if I'm being honest with you.
I can't talk to you anymore now.
But I'll be cheering for Ohio State. I'm not a big Michigan guy, so I'll be cheering for Ohio State if there's any consolation. So
there
sure.
It is. As long as you just can't say the name of that team either. By the way, you just
the team up north.
Yeah, the team up north. So anyway, along with all these things, best of all with FanDuel, you can place your first bet on FanDuel Sportsbook basically risk free. If you take my bad advice at times and you lose, you're going to get a refund up to $500. All you got to do is download the FanDuel Sportsbook app with promo code SCU to bet from anywhere in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. If you lose your first bet within 7 days of signing up, FanDuel Sportsbook will give you a refund of up to $500 in site credit. Again, that's promo code SCU, like Steel City Underground. And just because we have to read this bit, cash out not available on all markets. Offer applies to first online wager only. Refund issued as a site credit. Site credit expires after 14 days. Go to sportsbook.fanduel.com for full terms. You must be 21 or older and present in New Jersey or Pennsylvania. And if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, now we're going to flip over to my favorite part, my favorite side of the game, the area where grown-ass men live, the defense. And people are saying the defense actually has to play better, and I will agree. The defense has to play better than they did in the Browns game. They cannot have the busted coverages they had in the Browns game. But when you think of that game, remember, Mason threw 4 interceptions. And what was the final in that game? Remind me?
21-7.
21 points. 4 interceptions. The Browns only got 21 points, 14 of which came off busted coverages.
Yep.
Yes, they can't do that. But I've been preaching this. I've been preaching it since after the Patriots game. The defense is going to carry this team this year. The offense, well, I shouldn't say after the Patriots game, after the Seattle game, because once Ben was gone, this was just the way it was going to be. The defense has got to carry him, and this defense continues to get better. Minkah Fitzpatrick continues to have ball magnets in his hands, and wherever he is, the ball seems to be there. He shows ballet-like grace in avoiding the sidelines, in the last game, and picks them up when they need to. Devin Bush has been quiet for a while, but again, came up with a big fumble there at the end of that game. The defense, in my mind, is playing very well, and in a lot of ways, to me, it starts up front. Cam Hayward, Tyson Alualu, Javon Hargrave, T.J. Watt, and Bud Dupree. Those guys are balling out. And I think TJ is, and Bud to a certain extent as well, are starting to get the James Harrison treatment, which means they can be held on every single play with a guy's arm around their neck, and 99% of the time, the refs are going to ignore it.
Yep.
And it drives me nuts, but hey, that's what happens when you get so good that they think that the other guys deserve to cheat to help make it equal. And Cam Hayward just, I got to say it, Cam Hayward's just a grown-ass man. That was a brutally nasty sack. But I'll tell you, against the Browns last time around, these guys made one big mistake. They kept letting Baker get out of the pocket. They have to contain him better. You cannot allow him to extend plays. You've got to get a hold of him. You've got to get him on the ground. And if they can do that, if they can contain him, keep him in the pocket, make him throw from within the pocket, I think the turnovers that they didn't get last game can come. And I think that they can easily maybe not easily, but they can contain the Browns offense. I think it starts up front for me, and that's where it needs to begin, and that lets everybody else play their part. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Browns, specifically the Baker Mayfield, has been turnover prone this season. I mean, he's thrown an interception in every single game except for the Steelers game, the Bills game, and the Broncos game. I mean, realistically, every other game this year, he's thrown at least one interception. I think that was a big part of why the Browns were able to have success. You know, he was able to get these broken plays where it seemed like T.J. Watt was right there, Cam Hayward and Bud Dupree. They were all right there. And it seems like Baker's getting ready to go down. All of a sudden, he does a little magic act, gets on the outside, and throws a completion on third down to keep the drive alive, and they score a play later or whatever. You know, I think those are the things that kind of killed them. And when we see the offense not be able to move the ball that they weren't able to do against the Browns last time, where they seem like they're stagnant, and the fact that you're looking at a 14-7 game in the fourth quarter, even with that and considering the defense makes one or two plays there, that's going to be the change in the game. That's what we've seen every game this year the Steelers have won. The defense has stepped up, made big plays when they needed to, and have changed the entire momentum of the game. They didn't have that the last time they played the Browns, and I think that's ultimately what ended up killing them. Because really all it was, like you mentioned, the Browns had a couple chunk plays that went for a touchdown and a blown coverage. The one that stands in my mind is the one where Steven Nelson gets burned, turns around, puts his hands up like he was expecting some level of help on the back end, I'm assuming from the safety. You know, those type of things can't happen. You have to go and be able to have sound coverage against these guys, especially when you have a player like Baker Mayfield who's able to extend plays like he is. That's going to be deadly. I think if you want to win this game, the defense has to step up, hope to get a little more help from the offense, but then force the turnovers, because we saw them do none of that on the last time these two teams played. They're able to do that this time. All it takes is one splash play. It doesn't have to be a vintage Minka Fitzpatrick touchdown. It could just be a very timely interception or a T.J. Watt strip sack or a forced fumble. Anything like that can help sway the momentum. And once that happens, the Steelers have the power, I think, to kind of take over a game and kind of cruise with it, especially if Duck Hodges kind of provides them with that spark they're hoping he's going to give them. But if the defense doesn't do that, it's going to be another long game of watching Baker Mayfield scramble around because they don't have a strong offensive line, and get balls completed to Jarvis Landry and to Odell Beckham Jr. And I think that's what terrifies me the most, is that we're going to see a Browns offense come out, put together drives that are going to take the wind out of the Steelers' sails, and they're not going to be able to rebound if the offense can't get it going. But I am confident, you know, this season we haven't seen the Steelers have a bad game like that since the Patriots game. I think it's more of an outlier game than it was the norm. I expect the Steelers to have more turnover opportunities and to get after Baker Mayfield a little bit more after we saw how much he was able to get out of pressure last time. I expect a bigger game from T.J. Watt. We've seen the type of games he has against the Browns over the last 3 years. I expect another one of those vintage type games where he kind of takes over and continues to build upon that Defensive Player of the Year resume. And I'm going to give my prediction. I expect another interception from Minka Fitzpatrick. I think he's overdue for one, which is kind of ironic to say the guy who's tied for first in the league is overdue for an interception. But I think he's due for a big turnover splash play more than just the fumble recovery he had last week against the Bengals. I think that gets accomplished. I think the Steelers can come out on top of this game if the defense can hold up their end of the bargain, which we've seen them do so often this year. But we've also seen what happens when they don't, and that turns into losses like they had against the Browns. So hopefully that's not the end result this week.
Right. I'm going to, my bold predictions on this are really going to be on the offensive or the defensive side. I have no bold predictions for the offensive side because that feels just dumb. My bold prediction is they don't turn the ball over. There you go on the offense. That's my offensive bold prediction that Devlin stays clean and they don't turn the ball over. But on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to say that, and this is partly just because I think they have to do this, not necessarily the number that I'm going to throw out here, but I think they contain Baker in the pocket and they get 5 sacks. they have to contain him. And if they do, I think they'll get him on the ground multiple times. I think TJ could get 2 sacks. I think Bud could get 2 sacks. And then somebody else will get another one. So I'm calling for 5 sacks. If that happens, I agree with you. I think Minkah can get a pick. And they can get a couple fumbles, maybe a strip sack. Both Bud and TJ are just zoned in on how to get those strip sacks right now, even if we don't always recover them. TJ is aiming, Bud is aiming. They're going for him. This team needs the turnovers, and I think they can do it. I think that they hold the Browns' offense in check. They don't make the dumb mistakes that they did in the first game. Being at home, I think, will help them. And while I will be upfront and honest and tell you that if things don't go their way, if they don't play mistake-free football, if they don't play smart, the Browns certainly are talented enough to put a whooping on them. The Browns fans who are going to jump into the comments on YouTube and just whine and cry and have a fit about us not giving the Browns respect. I give the Browns respect. Remember, I was the one at the beginning of the season that thought they might make it into the wild card. But, you also have to respect the fact that this defense is very good and is probably the best defense the Browns play all year. And they have the capability to shut that team down. And what they've got to do that is just play sound football and do what they've been doing. And if they can do that, then I think the Steelers can get out of Heinz Field with a close game that will get a win and help their case for a playoff position. I will say this on the flip side of that, because as I said, for me the keys to this are the O-line needs to play a little bit better. They've got to be able to do both things. They can't become one-dimensional and just give up on the run. The D must contain Baker Mayfield better, and they've got to win the turnover battles. I think if they do all 3 of those things, they can win this game. It's not a given, but I think that they can. You see things any differently than that?
Yeah, I mean, the one key I will give, I do believe that Duck will turn the ball over once, just once.
Oh, you're killing me.
That's my belief. I think he's going to take a chance with the ball at least one time during the game, and it's going to be a 50-50 ball, kind of off-guided, and the DB picks it off. That's going to be my one thing. I think he also finishes the game with 2 touchdowns. I'm going to give you that.
There you go.
2 for 1, so I'm going to kind of give a back and forth there. I think that's going to be the key, though, like I said earlier, is if he can get the ball moving even just a little bit more vertically than we saw it. I want to see this dink and dunk offense that we saw from him. People want to criticize Mason Rudolph for his dink and dunk. He's still averaging more air yards per throw than Duck Hodges did in his limited playing time in the black and gold. I want to see more opportunities of him going downfield, seeing more of those one shots like we saw with Deon Cain, like more of the one shots we saw with James Washington and so on and so forth. I know that Deon Cain wasn't him, but point remains. I just want to see more of those attempts down the field to kind of get the offense moving. I think if they can do that and also establish more of a run game than we saw the last time, I think that's going to help take a lot of that pressure off the defense. I think the defense is up to the task of stepping up to the plate and kind of taking over these games and really kind of putting the weight of the team on their back. But I don't want to see them have to do that. I want to see this be the game where the Steelers start to hopefully get some sort of offensive identity that they haven't had with Mason Rudolph, to the point where we can watch them go out there, enjoy watching them perform, put some points on the board, and then really force the Browns to have to try to play catch up or stay in this game. And I think that's when you're going to see the mistakes happen. We're going to see the coverage breakdown or coverage hold up, and see the protection breakdown for Baker Mayfield. You're going to see T.J. Watt and Bud Dupree get those sacks. You're going to see a vintage Minkah Fitzpatrick interception or a Devin Hodge. Wow, Devin Bush, interception or turnover, or Joe Hayden pass defense. I think you're going to see those happen if the Steelers defense can kind of just play unhinged and really kind of force the Browns to make mistakes. Because I think the Browns were in control the last time, which kind of prevented any of those mistakes from happening. Because even when the Steelers were up 14 or down 14-7, you never really felt like they were in the game. The score indicated they were only a score back, but the Browns still felt as though they were in control of the game. I think if the Steelers can put themselves in that position where they're up by a score or two and force the Browns to try to come from behind and see that defense really kick it in high gear, that's going to be the difference. So my main key of the game is expecting the defense to see them step up, but only after the offense has done their part for the first time really all season, because it's been the defensive show really every single game this season. So I think the Steelers offense gets it going, hopefully with Duck Hodges. He gives them enough of a spark. Randy Fichtner gives them some creativity to make things interesting, and they can put some points up on the board to take a lot of that pressure off the defense so they can go out there and just swarm around the ball and make this really a lopsided game in favor of the Steelers and see them make that push as they head into the last quarter of the season. So that's kind of where I'm leaning towards with what I'm hoping to see from them this weekend.
Fair to say that the loser of this game can kiss their playoff hopes goodbye?
I think either way you look at it, yes. Because I think if the Browns win this game, their schedule is unbelievably favorable. I think they make a push for a wild card spot. The Steelers win this game. I don't think it necessarily clinches their spot, but I think being 2 games behind the Steelers, which the Browns would be then, puts them in much more of a predicament because now they're behind not even just the Steelers, but they're going to be in a likely situation where they're behind the Raiders still, the Bills, obviously, the Colts. There's a number of teams that they'd be pushing themselves behind. They don't want to be 2 games back on any of those teams when it comes to playoff time. So it's a must-win for them, and it's a must-win for the Steelers just to maintain their consistency. Because I don't think the Bills game is a given for the Steelers, and I don't think the Cardinals game is a given for them. So I think realistically, you need to win this game to get yourself to 7-5 and give yourself some breathing room and flexibility schedule-wise, making the push down the road. So I think conceivably, whoever loses this game, more so the Browns are going to see their playoff hopes really kind of diminish. But more so the Browns and the Steelers. I think the Steelers have some breathing room, but barely any.
Yeah, not much. The way I look at this is the Steelers have 5 games left, obviously, so the Browns. They've got to win the next 4. That's the way I look at it. You get to the Ravens game. Look, I wasn't a believer. I'm still not sure I'm a believer long term. But right now, I don't know that there's a better team than the Ravens, and we will find that out when they play the 49ers. They've earned the respect to say. I mean, you demolished the Rams and everybody else. You beat the Patriots. I think you got the right to claim that you're the best team in the league right now. And so it's hard to imagine this team going to Baltimore and winning that game, even though the Steelers' defense is probably the defense that has played Lamar and the Ravens the best.
Lamar had 3 picks, and I think the offense had 220 total yards or something like that game. It came down to a fumble.
Yep, exactly. So it's not impossible, but I think for the Steelers to make the playoffs, they have to start with this win, and then they've probably got to win the next 3 after it. But you're right; they have a little more leeway, and that will change. Look, if they can beat the Bills. And the Raiders can continue to be iffy, and the Colts can continue to be iffy. Who knows? But yeah, I think there's a good chance that whoever loses this game probably isn't going to be a wild card team because the division is the Ravens at this point. I just don't see anybody catching them unless they have a complete face plant, which I guess could happen, but is unlikely.
Can't be.
And so that be that as it may. So, any final words from you, sir? Any pearls of wisdom you'd like to cast amongst the swine?
The only thing, like I said, we said earlier in the podcast, I think just be realistic with Devlin Hodges. Hope for the best, but don't expect him to come out there and have a vintage Brett Favre or modern Pat Mahomes type game. I just hope that he manages well. He takes care of the football and he can move the ball. And he does that. We could be looking at a 7-5 football team come Monday. So, hope for the best, but see what happens. Just enjoy the ride. It's been a stressful 2019 season. 5 games left to kind of make your last mark and kind of hope for the best. And you never know what happens when the playoff comes. So,
absolutely. You can never tell. And I'm with you there, and officially, all listeners, I don't think you're swine. You're awesome, and I love you. I was talking about all the other teams' fans who listen and then comment nastily. That's the swine that he was casting the pearl amongst.
The only I have in my life are the trolls on Twitter. That's about it.
Absolutely. I think that's going to wrap it up for us this time around. We will hopefully, all be reconvening, or at least you and Joe will be reconvening after what we hope will be a Steelers victory. But in the meantime, Zach, thank you for stepping in and spending the evening with me.
Always a pleasure, Brian. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And for everybody else out there, remember to like, listen, subscribe, do all those great things. Keep the comments coming. We love them. And start a petition that says Brian needs Missy Matthews bobblehead. # give me Missy's bobblehead. Because she taunts me with it. She taunts me. I'm just telling you. But anyway, besides all that, let's hope for many grown-ass man moments. Remember, the refs stink. And as I always like to say, it's chaos out there, so be kind.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.